And good afternoon. My name is Kenji Hakuta, and I'm a professor at Stanford University. The purpose of today's presentation is really to just give an introduction into the work that we're doing. I'm going to start off by just giving you a little bit of a sense of the vision that our work is pursuing, and the standards that we'll be using to develop the assessment that we're in the process of doing, and then we'll give you a flavor of the incredible collaboration that's going into this effort. Margaret Ho will give a presentation about from a state perspective of the work that's going on, and Phyllis Farrar from Kansas will talk about some perspectives from her state, as well as Kelly Torres, who's been working with our team in developing items for the assessment. So we're trying to be very simple about our vision. The vision is to provide assessments that best measure English learners' mastery of the communication demands of states' rigorous academic standards. And by saying this, I would like to really emphasize how important it is for the field to address those two needs of English language learners, the development of English language proficiency, as well as, of course, having access to academic standards in English language arts, math, science, social studies, and across the spectrum. And that those are two things that need to be addressed simultaneously, not sequentially. And we find that we're at a time right now when we can really advance the field in terms of how to really help students address both of those challenges. I have the pleasure of sharing, co-chairing with Maria Santos, an initiative that's based at Stanford called Understanding Language. And this is an initiative it's a national initiative. It happens to be based at Stanford, but it really brings together a collaboration of not just researchers and theorists, but policymakers, practitioners, educators. And we've been at this for about 2 years, really trying to address the real sort of national movement that's been going on in addressing college career-ready standards. In some places it's called Common Core. In other states it's called something else. But in all cases, what it really is about really adding rigor to the content that students are exposed to, so that by the end of high school, students are ready for college and for career. And we see this as a tremendous opportunity for English language learners. It's a tremendous opportunity for all students, but especially for English language learners, where often the language demands are separated from the content demands, and this is a true kind of moment when we could bring those together. So if you go to the Understanding Language Initiative website, which is ell.stanford.edu, or just you can Google Understanding Language, you'll see a number of these resources that are listed here, and including papers and resources and news items and so forth. And we've been experimenting these days with the free open online courses known as MOOCs, one of the ugliest acronyms in use today, but very, very engaging. And these are free courses. And we just offered one on student discourse that we offered last fall. That was for which about 9,000 educators registered around the country. And so we're offering those as well. And if I could have the next slide, I just want to put this slide up of one of our close collaborators, Aida Walke from West Ed. Those of you in the field of English language learners, she's a household name. And if you go to our website, you'll see a paper by her and a video. And really, if we had the resources, we would play that video for you. Very short video in which she talks about what this shift that we're calling the shift of language and content that the new standards represent as really representing a shift of thinking about language not as structures, as forms, or not even as functions like discussing or explaining, but really as action. That language really is represented in the actions that students take in the course of schooling, and especially in the course of taking their content courses, not as an isolated piece, even though an isolated focus on English language development is also necessary in various stages of language development. But language as action is really the core of it. The standards on which the ELPA21 assessment are going to be based were developed to really support students in their college and career readiness, and especially in how they correspond to the new standards. So a couple of points I want to refer to on these bullets here is, in the second bullet, you'll see that there's a document that's called the Framework for English Language Proficiency Development Standards, which was developed by the Council of Chief State School Officers in collaboration with us, Stanford's Understanding Language. And then the standards really were based on this framework document. And so there's kind of a developmental history here in which we engaged educators and researchers looking at the content standards and the new language demands, and especially the parts that really speak to language as action. And we developed standards through that process. The ELPA21 standards, you'll see is, and if you'd like to see the standards, which I'm sure you will, they're posted in various places, but we're going to be posting by Monday on our Understanding website a standards at a glance, because standards documents tend to be pretty cumbersome to go through, that you'll be able to look at. So if you're interested in following up, please take a look at the website that you see there, or just go to Understanding Language. And those standards are adopted, or have already been adopted by Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, Ohio, Oregon, Washington, and West Virginia. And so they've been kind of publicly vetted in those states, and these, again, will be the basis for the assessment. This is a really a huge undertaking, but very exciting. The assessment development is a collaboration of the states through funding from the U.S. Department of Education, through an assessment grant, development grant for innovation. And the standards form the basis for this assessment that we're currently undertaking. And these bullets, for those of you who are in test development, will mean something. But essentially, we're doing various things, including what's called cognitive labs, testing them out and so forth, which we will be engaging on in this fall, with field testing happening in next spring, and the operational summative assessment, the end of year test will be available in April of 2016, and then a screener assessment will be available in the fall of 2016-17. That's kind of our assessment process. We've got some great partners in it, and it's an exciting collaboration. And among them is Margaret Ho, who is Director of Assessment in English Language Proficiency in the state of Washington. And so I'm going to turn this over to her so that she can talk about the process from her perspective. Margaret?
Thanks, Kenji, for that introduction. So each state in the consortium brings some important strengths and experiences that benefit the member states. And my state, Washington, joined ELPA21 in order to leverage those strengths and experiences as we navigate the changing landscape of learning expectations and targets for all students, including English language learners. We know that being part of this consortium, we could contribute to the development of the new English language proficiency standards that are based on current research and standards that reflect the increased demands for complex and academic language use in today's classrooms, as Kenji described. And as a consortium state, we have access to thought partners, including luminaries in the field, such as Dr. Hakuta, who just addressed us. And we'll have not only ELP standards that are better than what we might have developed on our own, but we'll also have an assessment system designed to measure those standards that is innovative and forward-looking. Finally, a compelling reason for us to join the consortium was to have a shared operational understanding of an English language learner and of the word proficient as defined by a common instrument, so that English language learners who move into and out of our state have equity of access to and continuity of supplemental support services. As a consortium, ELPA21 has a voice beyond our own individual state's voice to contribute to the national dialogue about service to and accountability for English language learners, which we saw as a distinct advantage of membership. Now I'd like to describe the structure and membership of ELPA21. Next slide, please. There we go. So ELPA21 is a consortium of 11 states, and you can see in the map on the lower right-hand corner where those states are located. And this assessment system that we are collaboratively designing is to measure the performance of ELLs as they progress through their K-12 education and achieve college and career readiness. We do have partners that are listed at, above the map on the right-hand side of the slide, and they include the Understanding Language Initiative at Stanford, the National Center for Research on Evaluation Standards and Student Testing, CREST, at UCLA, and the Council of the Chief State School Officers, CCSSO. Oregon, a Department of Education, is the lead state agency, and CCSSO is the project management partner. And we will report on 4 language domains of reading, writing, speaking, and listening through the production of summative and assessments and a screener. So this slide shows some of the assessment features that we'd like to highlight today. Some aspects of the member states' experiences and strengths include Kansas's instructional models, Iowa's professional development approach, my state's vertical scale model, and Oregon's semi-adaptive online ELPA. And you'll see a short presentation from Kansas and from Oregon today about what they bring to the consortium. This slide also shows some of the features that will support the development of the assessment system, as well as the professional development associated with development and administrative processes. And last, the sustainability effort anticipates the future beyond the grant period so that there's a coherent plan going forward for member states. Next slide, please. This graphic shows the structure of ELPA21's governance, and I'll begin with the green box at the bottom of the slide, task management teams. There are 4 task management teams who perform and oversee the work of assessment development, from item development to reporting. And each team is responsible for some aspects of that work and is led by a contracted expert in that work and has 4 or 5 state members. Each team works with contracted vendors selected in a competitive process to produce the deliverables necessary so that we can have electronically delivered assessment instruments. The red box on the left is the Consortium Council. Each state member has 1 representative on this council, and this group also includes the management partner, CCSSO. They meet twice a month and make recommendations about policy and practice. The gray box at the top of the graphic is the executive board. It includes representation from 5 states, as well as the lead state, Oregon, and the management partner, CCSSO. The primary investigators from Understanding Language, Kenji Hakuta and Martha Castellon, also attend. This executive board meets twice a month, and it's the final decision-making body for the consortium. Now I'd like to introduce one of the members of the Executive Board, Phyllis Farrer from the state of Kansas. Phyllis will speak to the reasons why Kansas joined the ELPA21 consortium and will showcase one of the strengths Kansas brings to the group, their NAEP results. Phyllis?
Thank you, Margaret. I'm very pleased to be here as a consultant in the Career Standards and Assessment Services team at the Kansas Department of Education. I've worked diligently to make us part of this consortium. For the past 10 years, Kansas has used an English language proficiency test developed by one of our universities in Kansas. Our ELLs, our standards, our assessment was sort of our motto. However, with this opportunity, and based on all the strengths that Margaret mentioned of the collaborative work and the resources that are being pulled into this project, we love the fact that the states represent a cross-section, almost literally a cross-section from northwest to southeast. We want the best, latest research-based innovative thinking for our ELLs as we develop this assessment. The shared resources, the new delivery system, the innovations are there for the single purpose of serving our ELLs, this very special group of students. So I'm going to digress briefly, and if I have the next slide, please. Each of the states in the consortium has a different ELL profile, and that's part of the uniqueness and part of what we can share. I'm just going to briefly tell you that Kansas, maybe to the surprise of some folks, does have a substantially growing ELL population. Last year it was 10% of our population. This year, 11% of our school population. But because of employment opportunities, there are towns, and I have put a pie chart for several towns across the state where the ELL population is much higher than 10%. For example, in the northeast corner, Kansas City, it's about 20%. Coming down to the towards the southwest, Emporia, 37%. Our largest city, Wichita, 20%. And then in the southwest, we have school communities. The school makeup is 55% ELL in Dodge City. Garden City has 46%. And Liberal last year had 59%, and I believe this year is now at 60%. We're very proud of our ELLs and the diversity of language resources they bring into our schools. These standards are a critical tool to support personal and academic language development. We completed a set of standards in 2011, but the opportunity to work with this group, with this consortium, inspired us to reconvene our State Standards Committee in order to participate in the ELPA Standards Development Project in 2013, and we're very proud that we got those standards adopted in December of last year. And the next slide. Like most states, we're concerned about whether our ELLs have access to high academic standards and are concerned about the gap between performance levels of ELLs compared to non-ELLs. We see progress in closing that gap, both in our state tests and on NAEP scores. Our educators are apparently doing something right, even though we may not be able to identify just exactly what that is. But at the state level, our efforts have been in developing the best standards possible and an implementation of a framework that we call multi-tiered system of supports, which is also widely known as RCI. Quick look at those two things that will support RELs in Kansas. Here are our NAEP scores, trends over the past 10 years. We've combined two charts here, one for 4th grade and one 8th grade. Don't compare the two grades, the scales are different. But in the lower pair of lines, you can see for grade 4, grade 8 is up above, The red lines represent the average scale scores for the national public school sample. The blue line represents Kansas public school sample of ELLs. And those differences in those lines are good news for Kansas. And we are actually didn't have time to put the charts up, but it's interesting that a number of states in our consortium have that kind of higher scale for ELLs than the national average. Next slide, please. This slide depicts Kansas fourth grade ELLs on the left in the shaded area compared to the Kansas non-ELL fourth graders on the right. And it makes a visual image of the gap that has been discussed. The 50th percentile, let's just use that as an example. In 2003, the ELLs in the 50th percentile range scored 191 compared to the non-ELL 50th percentile score of 224. That's a gap of 33 points. In 2013, ELLs in the 50th percentile range scored 207 compared to non-ELLs at the 50th percentile, which scored 231. That's a difference of 24 points. So with concerted efforts, we will continue to whittle away at the gap and hopefully see improvements that continue along this line. And next slide, same thing is true of grade 8, but the differences are even more drastic. In 2007, ELLs in the 50th percentile scored 185 compared to the non-ELL 50th percentile score of 269, which is a difference of 84 points. And in 2013, ELLs in the 50th percentile scored 247 compared to non-ELL 50th percentile score of 272, a difference of only 24 points. So there's evidence that with support, with good instructional techniques, good instructional programs, we can close the gap. And next slide. As I mentioned previously, we feel good standards support good instruction. We also believe that good standards and assessments must be suited to incorporate seamlessly with our statewide framework for school improvement. In Kansas, that's what we call the multi-tiered system of supports, and more commonly known in academia and other states as RTI, but we have our own branding. And we do feel, next slide please, that the core beliefs of MTSS are shared by the core beliefs with ELPA21. We want every child to learn and achieve the high standards. We want learning to include both academic and social aspects. Every member of the learning community continues to grow, learn, and reflect. Every leader at all levels is responsible for every child. Change is intentional, coherent, and dynamic. And those tenets of MTSS bring me back to one of the main reasons that we joined ELPA21. Change is intentional, coherent, and dynamic. Innovations in our assessment systems are also intentional, coherent, and dynamic. Each state in this project is contributing to many facets of the project. The next presenter, Michelle McCoy from Oregon, serves on the Item Acquisition and Development Task Management team and brings many of the successes and strengths of the Oregon assessment system to our consortium. So, Michelle, would you please continue with your contribution to the project?
Yes, thank you.
I want to talk today about Oregon's part in the ELPA21 consortium. Oregon currently has an online English language proficiency assessment, and we are committed to improving that semi-adaptive assessment. Oregon's also very interested in the development and implementation of an ELPA21 screener that is standardized and computer-based. Having a screener that's aligned to the adopted standards will further streamline and standardize our work. Oregon's adaptive test is always a work in progress for continuous improvement. We strive to have top-notch test items that are interesting and engaging to keep our students interested and to help them show us their best work. Joining the ELPA21 consortium provided an opportunity to go from the single state mentality to a groupthink model. This will help us to create an excellent college and career-ready, standard-based assessment for the thousands of English language learners in the consortium states. Additionally, it's exciting to consider how the ELPA21 states will be able to share data and service their students who move between states during the school year. Next slide, please. So Oregon has a comprehensive system, and the ELPA21 test user interface system is expected to be comprehensive in a similar manner and be easy to use after some training and practice. Plans include using a system that includes various personalized user roles, such as what's shown on your screen: test administrator, test coordinator, systems administrator. Oregon's current system is the basis of this planning, and the final product will be created to meet the ELPA21 state's high standards. This type of system helps users to enroll students for testing, set appropriate individual accommodations, and to approve students who are ready to test. Next slide, please. So here's an example of the test administrator interface, in which the top red button on kind of the right of the screen shows a unique session ID, and only students in that session would be able to join. More to the left, number 2 in red, are the topics that are being tested at the time, and this is just a screenshot from a guide. This is not a real school. These are not real students. Over to the right, there's a student waiting to be approved, John Johnson, again, not a real student. And then the test administrator, which we refer to as the TA, can see all the students in his or her session and watch. If you look under the green area, student status on the right, it'll show if the student is finished, paused, and where they're at in the test questions. Oregon's user management system is what I might call a one-stop shop for setup, specific access, and restriction settings for students. You can see some of the various topics on the screen. Only specific district personnel in tightly outlined roles can edit or add information in this type of a screen. Next slide, please. All right, so we work with a vendor to annually develop new test items. Educators from Oregon are involved in that process in numerous ways, and essentially we look to have around 400 new items each year, and we do like to explore new and innovative item types in that development so that we can begin to try out items that might be those more innovative and interesting items for the students. Then, when they're prepping to be field tested, Oregon educators come and review the items. We have a couple of different common types of panels: sensitivity and bias, and then just item review. So that's on the front end. Before the items are field tested, they go through numerous QC checks. Then, after the items are actually field tested during our window, other educators come back and perform rubric validation and range finding so that the test items, especially the hand-scored items or innovative items that might be using machine scoring, are scoring correctly for the students. And then we frequently have the panel members come in and talk about new items, topics and content, what's being taught in classes, and what kind of items they can help us develop. So next slide, please. So this is a great example. We are working on our kindergarten item bank, and this year we had a kindergarten item writing team come and start to develop some easier items for those kinder kiddos. And again, all these are released items, and these are actually items that are live right now on our Oregon ELPA practice test. So this item is a listening item for kindergarten and first grade. That's why there is what looks like a stop button just below the item number 5522. And what the person says is, what is the first letter in dog? And the students can replay that stem over and over. And then the options, A, B, C, D, each have a small speaker which is slightly grayed out right now, and they can listen to those as well because it's a listening item. Here's an example of a new innovative item type known as hot text or hotspot. This is a 4-5 reading item in which the students would read the passage, and then at the bottom in bold it says, click the sentence that explains how jump rope rhymes have spread. They would then go back through what they read in the paragraph, clicking on a sentence, and it will turn green. Sorry, I can't show that to you live. And that would be considered their answer, which the machine will then score during that range finding and rubric validation after the field test window. Okay, next slide, please. Here's an example of a 6-8 writing item that's a graphic response in which the students will drag and drop tiles from the bottom up into the dotted shaded areas to create a sentence. And their instructions are, make a sentence that matches the picture, put a word in each box, and you must use all the words. So this is a new item type that we have been field testing and improving for a couple of years now. And next slide, please. And now we're up to the highest grade band, 9-12. And this is an example of a hand-scored speaking item that Oregon uses called Speaking Extended Response, in which we ask a relatively intensive group of questions to attempt to elicit a high-level response from the student in the form of a complex sentence. So generally speaking, it includes a small setting of the scene, 3 questions, including one that has a why, because we are trying to elicit a because answer. This prompt will begin playing immediately upon the student arriving to this item, and the students can replay the prompt over and over and read it on screen as the voice is speaking. Then below the stop button, you see the recorder and a little speaker that's grayed out, and that actually is in color, and it's green and red for when the students using their headphone and microphone will then record their response and click stop. And that is then hand scored at a scoring center. Okay, next slide, please. So at the end of the line, then we need an individual student report for the ELPA, and this is our example of our new 2013-14 individual student report, or ISR, for the Oregon ELPA. This is half of the form. I just want to show you the top half in a readable manner, in which in the gray box to the left, student data is given, and then in the right, on the right, is a form letter to parents talking about the test and what it should contain. Now, this is a report that's mailed home to parents annually in order to meet the Title III parental notification requirement of the student's annual progress. Next slide, please. And then here's the bottom half, if you can imagine these two pieces being together. This is now the part reporting the scores that the student will receive. And this is, by the way, completely fake information. I just wanted to make one that showed various domains being scored. So you can see the composite and then the 4 domains. And then over on the far right column are the performance level descriptors for each of the scores that the student received. So this is individualized by the scores that the computer generates for each student. And these are the Oregon current PLDs. So next up to share with you today is Kelly Torres. She will talk about some of the work that ELPA21 has been engaging in. She is an instructor at Florida State University, and along with me, she is a member of the Item Acquisition and Development Task Management team. Kelly?
Thank you, Michelle. As Kenji was saying earlier, I represent Florida as part of the ELPA Item Acquisition and Development Task Management team. And the purpose of this team is to identify and refine items for the ELPA21 assessment. This team has been working closely with the item development contractor, ETS, regarding test format, design, and specifications in regards to the type of items that will be included on the exam, and how each language skill will be assessed, as well as how items relate to the established standards. The Item Acquisition and Development Task Management team consists of a total of 4 members from different states, and the team leader is Dr. Phoebe Winter. Each team member has experience in test development in relation to English language learners, and the team members work collaboratively on all team tasks, which are facilitated by Dr. Winter. One of the most recent projects our team has been finalizing is a teacher recruitment application in order to recruit current educators to help with the item development process and item review process. So as you can see on this slide, there are a total of 11 ELPA21 states, and our goal is to recruit approximately 35 to 40 teachers in each of these states, which will result in approximately 360 teachers total. Most of the work will be completed in a face-to-face format in which educators will need to travel to a designated meeting site for several days to work on this project. And our hope is to have each committee include educators with a range of experiences, expertise, and geographical backgrounds. And by including 35 to 40 teachers per state, we would hope to capture educators from different areas throughout each state. The educators that are selected will be placed on different committees to either write exam items, to review and approve written text or passages that the item writers will use to create exam items, or educators will review newly constructed test items to make certain the items are clearly written and appropriate, as well as these individuals will suggest appropriate edits for each of the items. Other educators will review items for potential bias, so to make certain that items are not unfair or difficult for a particular group of students to answer, and as well as to identify items that need to be edited based on bias. So as you can see on the next slide, there's an outline for educator involvement in this project. So we plan for educators to have access to the online application form soon, and it will be available throughout the end of March. The states will then have time to review the submitted applications during the month of April. And then sometime toward the end of April, the test construction vendor, ETS, will contact educators who have been selected to participate on a committee, and they will notify them of the committee they were selected on and the dates that they will need them for their services. As well as ETS will then host an item writing training workshop around mid-May, or mid-August, sorry. And now I'll turn the presentation back over to Kenji for additional questions.
Thank you, everyone, and I hope you agree that one of my motivations for working on this project is the opportunity to collaborate with these wonderful educators across the nation. I'll share with you that probably one of the best compliments I've received about the standards on which ELPA21 is based was from a math teacher who said that this was she after looking at the standards, she really understood finally what English language proficiency standards are about and what they're supposed to do. And I think that is really a key part of what we're trying to accomplish, which is having language proficiency standards that speak to content teachers in a meaningful way, while also supporting the work that teachers of English as a second language or ELD teachers would do. And when I probed further about what she meant about this, she pointed out to, for example, one of our standards, Standard 5, about how and Standard 5 basically says an ELL can construct a grade-appropriate oral or written claim and support it with reasoning and evidence. And what really struck her was how that connected to one of the math standards in her state having to do with constructing viable arguments and critiquing the reasoning of others. And so this is really the kind of connection between the language standards and the content standards that we are hoping to follow up on. I'll just repeat our mission. Again, our mission statement is very simple, and that is to provide assessments that best measure English learners' mastery of the communication demands of states' rigorous academic standards. We are working very hard to deliver this assessment system by the end of next year, and really looking forward to that process, and of course to the product delivery. I'll use this as an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the resources in addition to understanding language and the work that states will be doing to support the standards, not just in assessment, but in communicating this to teachers. One of the opportunities we'll have in next fall, in October, will be a free online course, a MOOC, that the state of Oregon and Oregon State University, in collaboration with Stanford and Understanding Language, will be offering on the ELPA21, or the new ELP standards that underlie the ELPA21. And this is a free online course that will be available through both Oregon State and Stanford University. It will drill down deeply into, give a broad overview of the standards, but also drill down deeply in a selected number of standards. And especially what we've been working on there is the development of assignments in which teachers participating in the course go and examine language samples from their students. So in some cases it's discourse between students, in other cases they're writing samples, and examine it, share it with other teachers, do a little bit of peer and team collaboration, and share it out. And I think this is one of the best forms of professional development, is for teachers to look at student work, and especially to look at student language. And that's how we hope to drill down further into the standards. And so next fall we'll be offering this course, and then we'll be following up with subsequent courses looking at other aspects of the standards. But that's one way in which we're trying to take advantage of technology to really spread and share our